Welcome to the Institute for Advanced Astonishment. Advanced astonishment, David, is a word we like to use for the mystical experience or the near-death experience, this amazing, but beyond amazing, astonishing experience. And normally here we don't talk about stories, but we're definitely making an exception in your case because I love your story. And like you said, maybe give us a shorter version of it, and then we'll get into. And I just wanted
That's
to say, Jack Kerouac, I don't know if you're a fan, but he wrote that you are empowered to remind people that they are utterly free. And I know you're doing
mm,
exactly that. And one more from Long Island, where I was from, and the East Coast. Walt Whitman said, death is nothing like we think it is. In fact, it's luckier. And he also said, nothing can happen more beautiful than death, which is so counterintuitive to everything we, you know,
yeah, we're taught to fear death, right? You
yes.
know,
And
um,
my whole life, I was afraid. I was a skeptic, neurotic, atheist, into art and science and and I just could not get over the mountain that death was. And but I'd hear
yeah,
these near death experiences, and I don't know if you're familiar with Susan Blackmore's work.
yep, yep, yep,
So I studied with the amazing James Randi, who was like the godfather of the skeptic movement, and
yeah,
Blackmore was
yeah.
one, you know. So I read her book on near death experiences, and I centered everything on the brain, and I just was caught in the brain. I just couldn't understand spirit or anything beyond the brain. So
Well, Susan's changed her tune.
she has. She better. She has to.
Yeah, yeah. But that was a long-running theory for a long time that these dying experiences were just an element of the dying brain
Yes.
syndrome, they called it. But there's so much information out there of these experiences where people, they go outside their body, they travel to distant locations, they see things that they have no way of seeing or knowing, and when they come back, they're able to, share this veridical information that, kind of like, well, there's more to this near-death experience than a dying brain, because it's and for the experiencer, the experience itself is more real than this life. This life kind of
Yes.
feels dreamlike to me. It has ever since my experiences. So yeah, it's a phenomena. It's still classified, as a phenomena, but so is every spiritually transformative experience, right?
Yes.
That's what you're talking about, all these exceptional experiences. It's life altering. And
Yes.
and
And like you
you
said, from my experience, it was realer than real, the same thing. And I think, and I know the parallels will be perfect between us. I came back with um, a knowing that was unshakable, and it was, but you can't sometimes word it. Although you try, the tongue, I could write it better than I can say it, but it's beyond words. And as an atheist, that was always a cop out to me. You have to experience it. And I'd say, put it in my hand, put it on my desk, show me. And they'd
yeah,
say, you have to experience this. And that's the truth. You do.
yeah, yeah, you do. But you know what? You don't have to die to experience it, right?
Right.
Like in your case, so it's and that's the neat thing. We all have the ability to connect with our divine nature. We all have that, it's an innate ability that we have in this life. Unfortunately, we really don't share that that's available. We don't really delve into it that much because everybody's so focused on, making a living, getting on with life, because we all suffer from the illusion of being separate individuals that are trying to, strive through life. And so that's the real cop out, right?
Right.
Is
Now,
being trapped in that illusion.
You speak so beautifully about it, and you are driven to share this. Were you always this way right before you hit the water?
Uh, no, I was an engineer. I was very much in my head.
Yeah.
Very self-involved individual. I really didn't have empathy for anybody.
Wow.
So no, I wasn't like this at all. But I can honestly say too that once I had the experience, first it freaked me out. It was a new world view that I hadn't experienced before. And so I didn't know what to do with it. And this happened back in 1983. And so I didn't have, and I was the chief engineer of a research vessel, for those of you who don't know, when I had my experience. And I spent 9 months of the year out to sea. So I wasn't really tuned into what was happening, that much, because back in 83, we didn't have the type of satellite communication and stuff that ships have now, so we were, our communication to to home was ship to shore radio. So,
Wow.
where you have an operator and the whole world's listening in. So you're kind of careful what you communicate, that sort of thing, So, we were isolated. We're very isolated when we were offshore doing work. We did underwater exploration, which was my dream job, and so I was very, very much an engineer, that's who I was. And so when I had the experience, it really, really, tipped the scales for me. I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't know who to talk to about it. And that happens with almost most people that have some sort of transformative experience. First, you got to, there's so many challenges that come with it. That it's a beautiful thing, but it does come with challenges. We can't. First, we don't have a language to express this otherworldly event, right? So we have to try to find the words. Next, who do you share it with? Who do you share it with that you're certain isn't going to think you're nuts, or something else? So, and if you get a bad reaction, how do you deal with that? That was my experience. When I came back, I shared it with my first wife at the time, and it scared her. I didn't realize what she was experiencing when I was, sharing it with her, but it scared her to the point that she kind of freaked out. And so I felt like, well, I can't talk about this, and I worked offshore, and in the 80s, underwater exploration was dangerous work. And we put each other's lives in each other's hands every day. So death was a taboo subject. We, just wasn't something that, I couldn't tell them, hey guys, I drown out there,
So should we hear
Sure.
what happened? So
Yeah.
you're
So,
scientific minded at that time.
yep.
You're thinking logically and reasonably, and then
Well, we were returning from, we just evaluated a new remote operated vehicle. So and we were trying to make it back into the harbor because there was a storm coming, and we had to cut the evaluation short, and one of the design engineers needed to get to LAX. So we were trying to make it into shore, and we didn't. And the harbor master wouldn't allow our ship in. So we put a small craft in the water, a rubber Zodiac, and some of the crew that was evaluating the submarine, as well as the design engineer, were all being relieved and going in. So they're going to go home. And but I'm chief engineer of the research vessel. I don't leave the ship most of the time. This is a pretty rare thing, but we had a very small crew because we weren't doing a full blown expedition. So we just had a skeleton crew of mates on. So the captain asked me to accompany, because this the mate that we had that was going to drive the Zodiac just didn't know the harbor that well. So the captain asked me to go along. So I jumped in the Zodiac with everybody. I jumped in the bow trying to help navigate, because we were having 25 to 30-foot seas that night. And it's nighttime, it's stormy. the swells. We'd ride up on the top of a swell, try to take a bearing on the harbor buoy, and then we'd run the trough and get up on the next swell, and do the same thing over and over until we figured we'd make it into the harbor. But we lost track of the harbor buoy, and the storm had actually blown us a mile south of the harbor, and we hit a breaker zone, and we actually. We were moving pretty fast. We had a big engine on this Zodiac, and we flew right off of a breaker, and I yelled to the mate to turn us around because we were in a dangerous place, and so he started to turn us around, and just as he got us turned about, we were about to head out to sea. The next one came, and it came right down on top of us. Well, it folded the Zodiac in half. I was in the bow. It just catapulted me into the ocean. And now I'm in the ocean, and I'm just being tumbled and tossed like a rag doll. But I wasn't really too freaked out about it because I spent a lot of time in the ocean. I'm a commercial diver, so I've got thousands of hours booked in the water. I wasn't really concerned. I figured, because we had life vests on this night. Most of the time we didn't wear life vests, but I had a life vest on this night. And I figured, old Mae West here, she's going to carry me up to the surface. So I was just kind of tucked in and protecting myself. And, you kind of go through a lot of stuff there in those moments, because you're still being tumbled and tossed, and you're trying to just protect yourself, but you're thinking, well, I know I can only hold my breath for about 3 minutes, because, but that's about it, and that's a long time when you think about it. But then I started thinking, is my insurance covered? All that's kind of regrets mostly, like what's going on? And then eventually the euphoria of oxygen deprivation takes over, which is something that Susan Blackmore talked about.
Yes.
And you get that euphoria, right? From the oxygen deprivation. And then eventually it's just a natural response. You try to breathe. And when you breathe, you breathe in salt water and you drown. But it's interesting, and I've talked to a number of people that have drowned, and they've experienced it the same way. There's a millisecond of burning sensation, like, oh shit, and then boom, you're out of your body. So I mean, I couldn't even call it suffering. It just was like this bing, boom, and you're out of your body, and suddenly I was in this darkness, this absolute darkness. And, this is way more than I'd experienced, because we, in commercial diver training, we actually, put ourselves through some oxygen deprivation just so that we know what it is and we don't freak out, And so I'm like, this is way more than I've trained, and I was curious. And the interesting thing was that the darkness. You got to remember, I just came from this violence, okay? The roaring sea. It was on the West Coast in March where the water comes out of the north. It was frigid cold. Suddenly, I'm not cold. It's quiet. It's peaceful. So I'm curious, and I don't really feel alone. That's the weird thing, is I feel like I'm part of, there's something, conscious working with me here. And but it's, again, hard to put to words, but I didn't really feel alone. I'm comfortable. And I'm very curious as to what's going on. And then I saw a light. We've all heard stories about the light. Thank you, Hollywood. They've glamorized it quite a bit. But I didn't really go through a tunnel. I didn't go through a tunnel. What I did is, James, it was more like I was moving toward the light, or the light was moving toward me. I'm not sure. But as I got closer, I started feeling these waves of love. It was like I was being held in this warm embrace of love. It's hard to describe because everything isn't visual. Nothing is on a linear timeline or anything like that. But it just felt like I was being held in this warm embrace of love. And as I got closer to the light, I saw it was millions upon millions of fragments of light. And they were all kind of moving in unison. And if you've ever seen like a flock of migratory birds where they all kind of fly and all of a sudden they change directions and they move. Well, this was like that, only just think of all these multiple fragments of light with all these different colors. It was absolutely gaga awe-inspiring for me. I just, and as I got closer, three fragments broke away. And when they broke away, they started greeting me and they were welcoming me home. And I can tell you, James, this is it's still emotional thinking about because when I talk about it, I kind of have to go there
Yes.
to be able to share it. And I'm sure when you talk about your experience, I'm sure you do the same thing.
Yeah.
You kind of have to touch it. And so when they welcomed me home, I was I was like, yes, this is home. This is home, and it felt like something that I had done before. It felt like it was it was more of a remembrance than it
Mm.
was a new experience, you know? And so eventually a dozen of these light beings came and they greeted me and they communicated to me that we were going to go in deeper into the light. And as we went deeper into the light, we went to this area to me that felt very much like a giant bubble, a sphere. We went inside the sphere and that's where we started to relive my life. And I don't say, view my life or anything like that. I said relive my life because I got to relive my life from my perspective, but not only mine, but everyone I'd ever interacted with from their perspective. And so it was like your consciousness fragments into these multiple streams of consciousness, and you're experiencing it from all these different angles at the same time. Again, very humbling, very much in awe. But not only that, another level is that my soul family, I call those beings of lights that greeted me my soul family, and they're experiencing it the exact same way as I am with these multiple streams and all the interactions. And every time we do something, it creates like these ripples of actions, like, well, as an engineer, every action has a, reaction, right? So it was kind of the same thing, only energetically and interactively with everyone that we interact with. So when we would do something negative that we perceive as negative, it would create a ripple.
Right.
Yeah. And so but it was what really found interesting to me was the things that I felt were important in my life. Remember, I was this kind of self-involved ego kind of guy, and not kind of. I was a self-involved ego guy, and the things that I thought were important really held very little significance in this
That's great.
this life review. But when you would do something with loving intention, it would create some of the biggest ripples, especially if you really were passionate about the loving intention that you were, giving to someone. And so you know, this whole reliving my life was incredibly educational for this, mid-20 person who
So,
was,
so in other words, you're saying all your ambition and knowledge and everything that didn't cause as much of a ripple, but if you gave something to someone when you were 12 and you opened your heart, or you did a kind deed and you did that would be a big event.
exactly.
That's
Yeah.
beautiful.
Yeah. So you get to see this and you not only see it, but you're experiencing it and you're
Yes.
experiencing it from all these different, these different avenues. And so I was a little ashamed that my soul family, because when we're dying is a process. Susan Blackmore had that right. It is a process. It's a process of letting go of our emotion, letting go of a lot of the baggage that we carry in life, And so I still had, concern that my soul family had to experience some of the unsavory things of my life.
Right.
And but they weren't, no judgment. They just
Yeah.
loved me. They supported me. They were trying to help me to see clearly, and we went through my life and eventually we started seeing things that I didn't have a reference to.
Ah,
And it was, I didn't know it at the time. I've since learned that I was looking at my potential future.
Ah,
And so I went down that path for quite a ways. And it was very funny because in the review part of my life, everything was crystal clear, hyper real. But when we got into the part where we crossed the threshold into potential future, then it was more like looking down a corridor.
right.
The
Murkier.
central, yeah, the corridor was nice and clear, but when you looked at the periphery, that was a little more out of focus. But it didn't mean that I couldn't look this
Right.
way or look that way or go in that direction or go in this direction. It didn't mean that I couldn't do that. It just, which I have learned, or at least I have interpreted, this is my interpretation, that that's our free will, that we have this path that we kind of agree to, but we have free will on how we're going to achieve it and how we're going to get there. And if we go a little too far off on one side, we'll just be kind of nudged back to the clarity, of the
Yes.
center path. And so we went down there. We saw a number of events that, again, I had no reference for. But then I reached a certain point where the light itself spoke to me, and it said, "This is not your time. You must return." And you can imagine these millions upon millions of fragments of light speaking in unison that this is not your time. You have to return. It was this most loving parental kind of communication. But I said no.
No.
I said no. I'm not going back. I've got a family that I didn't even realize I had. I'm feeling loved like I've never been felt loved before in my life. And I know that body is just cold, 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 cold body in the ocean. I was still aware of it. Um, and I had no desire to go back to that. Life is hard.
Yeah.
I didn't want to. And and so the light spoke to me one more time, and this time it said, "You must return. You have a purpose." And it said it so lovingly. And the word purpose so resonated within my body. And when we're on the other side, we have our consciousness is so much more than what we have available here. We have this expansive awareness. I like to say, my little cute phrase is that we're connected to all the souls that ever were and all the souls that ever will be, and we have that collective knowing available to us. And so when I heard that word purpose and it resonated into my being, I saw it was simple, it was efficient, and how could I not
Right.
accept the purpose, right? And with acceptance, I found myself out of the light, back in the ocean, outside of my body, observing my body, watching it as it's still being tumbled and tossed. I'd gotten caught in that cyclical area of the wave zone where it pulls you in and pushes you back and pulls you in and pushes you back. And so I was in that area of the very deep. And some of the wreckage of the Zodiac, actually the bow line of the Zodiac, got tangled up. It got tangled up with me, and the bitter end of that line was tapping my lifeless chest.
Wow.
And I was just like, because I'm outside my body watching this, and the three original soul family members that greeted me were with me,
Oh,
and 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 we watched as another set of waves came through, and there was some air in one of the pontoons left in the Zodiac, and it popped it up. And when it did, it cinched that line around my arm, and it pulled my body up to the surface. And I went up with it. I just watched. And then, the waves were pounding my body up against this wreckage. And every time it did, it pushed some of that salt water out of my lungs. And when that happened, it was kind of like a miraculous resuscitation. My soul family gave me a push, and there was just this kind of resonant back into the body.
and then does
And
the pain come back at that point?
well,
Or
my body, we
heaviness?
were in frigid cold water, and the trauma to my arm, and it dislocated my arm and my shoulder when that rope pulled my body up. And you're trying to expel salt water, your larynx is on fire. You're, you, you're trying to get your wits about you, and you hear your buddies calling for you, because they are always the heroes to me because they stayed on station. They could have swam for their lives because everybody else popped right up. I'm the only one that didn't pop up because when I was in the bow, it just pushed me down very deep. And I didn't know it at the time, but my life vest was an old World War II vintage Mae West life vest, the big orange puffy pillows, that have been since outlawed by the Coast Guard. But it had dry rotted and the fiber filling had actually become saturated with salt water. And it was actually what was pulling me down. So the other guys, their life vests were fully functional. Mine wasn't. And so I discarded that and I was able to stay on the surface. And they found me and we all swam the last mile in a rough night. But the interesting thing is I came back and that veil of separateness started to descend. And I'm thinking, purpose. What was that purpose? I was trying to grasp onto it. It was like sand in my fingers. It was just flowing out of my hand. I couldn't keep the knowledge of the purpose. And so I have to admit, I was probably a little in shock because I'm hyperthermic. I'm, really dazed, having gone through that whole dying and coming back, being, resuscitated and everything. And so I was really fixated on what just happened. And it freaked me out.
Any skepticism at that? I mean, when you
Of
die before
course.
you die to that. Oh, you still, that's good to know. That's good.
Yeah, of course.
Even that.
You
Okay.
think at that moment you think because it was such a real event,
Right.
but you're like, am I going nuts?
Right.
Is there,
Is it
and
a
so
brain
you
hiccup?
kind of,
Is it a brain
you're
event?
trying to internalize it with your life knowledge, but it doesn't mesh. It's like suddenly, you've been thrust into a new worldview, and you have to integrate it. You have to bring it into this life to make it so that you could be whole again, because you now feel like you're this dualistic individual.
Yeah.
I know that I have this spiritual side of me, and I know that I have this human brain that tries to control everything. And so, where can I bring the two together? And so that begins a journey. It begins a
Yeah.
journey for every experiencer. I don't care what type of experience you've had. It's a journey to integrate it into your life.
That's what, just so you know, the advanced astonishment, there's a little 3 above one of the M's in astonishment on the podcast, a little 3. And it's just to remind me of the major M's. There's so many M's, but matter, like matter versus that it's all consciousness, medicine,
Right.
medicine, like I don't know where you stand on the psilocybin and the different medicines that are there. Your medicine is death is probably the most potent medicine that there could be, and these other medicines kind of give you that experience of a dying before you die. And then the third one is what you're saying, like a maintenance or a mind training. How do you not lose it once that's so important,
Yeah.
Did you find that
Yeah.
did you have to work to maintain it?
Well, I I said it frightened me, and the other thing is that and this is pretty common for experiencers, is that you come back sometimes with gifts.
Yeah.
My gift was I could look at someone in their eyes and I could see their fragment of light.
Beautiful.
It is, but it's also feels like it's intrusive, that I shouldn't be able to, that's a private thing. And
Right.
that without your permission, I should not be looking at your essence, divine nature, you know?
It's like those X-ray glasses they used to sell for like $2. You feel like
Yeah,
you're
well,
looking through.
they didn't work
No,
anything like this.
not like that.
But but
Did you
yeah,
always see? Did you always see like uh the Christ or the Buddha in everyone, or do you would
well,
sort of see their
well,
dark
we
sides?
all, yeah, yeah, you know, that's interpretation again, you know, like how do I interpret their light, their essence, their, you know, who they are. And also I started seeing auras. I'd never seen auras before.
Right.
And my little engineer brain was trying to, you know, trying to figure this out. And I didn't even know I'd never even heard the term aura. So I called them life force energy because that's all, you know, I didn't know what it was, you know. And
And you weren't well read in mysticism or in the
no, not
scriptures.
at all. Yeah. And so and I got a bad reaction when I tried to share it with my first wife, and I didn't feel like I could share it with my mates. So I isolated myself for 11 years.
Wow.
Um, but and I like I said, it frightened me. You know, big old macho diver Dave, you know,
Right.
it frightened me. And so I took what I could. That life review was mind blowing. And I got to see who I really was. And I call it acceptance. I could accept this is who I am, but I can be a better person because I saw how I was not helpful, how I was not doing. And so that seeing of how I was not being helpful and how important it was to use loving intention and to listen through your heart more. So I came to acceptance. This is who I am right here, right now, but I can be better and I can work toward being a better person.
It's beautiful.
The second thing was tolerance. Before, I guess, you know, I was self-involved. I really didn't care what other people thought, you know. And so, um, I, in that life review, I saw how people cross our paths all the time. And many times they'll make choices that we won't agree with. And that's okay because that's their life, their choices. And we can be tolerant that that's their life. They've chosen the path they've chosen in their life. And so acceptance of myself, tolerance of others, and tolerance of where I find myself. Like maybe I don't like where I am right now. Again, it's something that
Yes.
I can work. Yeah. You know, so acceptance and tolerance. And then the third thing that I took right away that my little engineer brain could deal with was truth. Now, as an engineer and schooled as an engineer, you know, I saw things pretty black and white. Well, I had just been thrust in a world of color, and suddenly, I saw that there's also a truth that resonates within our heart,
Yes.
and that truth, I call it our personal truth. You know that we all have this personal truth that really, when we come across a truth that resonates with our heart, it's usually something to pay attention to. And it may not be anything that you've learned in school. It may not be anything that you've experienced in life, but it's a bigger truth, okay, for you. And so those three things I could accept, I could deal with. And so that kind of became my mantra: acceptance,
Right.
tolerance, and truth. The rest of it, the soul family are arguing with what I perceive. Um, I kind of tucked that away.
Okay. We're
Yeah,
good.
one of the things that kind of happens for many experience, and certainly for me, was this sudden drive to be helpful, to to be of service,
Yes.
and um, and I didn't feel like 9 months of the year, 600 miles offshore type of job was my was allowing me to be of service. And it becomes a driving force. And also I became a voracious reader of anything that had love in the title because I wanted to get an understanding of what this unbelievable love was that I experienced. And so, it kind of starts you down this journey. And I quit my life at sea, um, became a an assistant director manager of dialysis programs for a hospital in central New York.
Uh,
And I I was it was kind of guided, you know, spirit, and I call communicating with my soul family, I call it spirit. Spirit would kind of put me in the right place at the right time. I would get these intuitive knowings that I didn't, it wasn't something I'd learned, it wasn't something I experienced, but suddenly I would know things. And so I would test those. And when I tested them, I found out how reliable they were and how, it was veridical information. I might as well use it. Um,
that's a
and
big
so,
question that a lot of people have. How do you trust the guidance? How do you know if it's the right voice or the wrong voice?
yeah, because we all have that chattery mind too,
Right.
right? And which voice are you listening to? Well, there's a lot of really good clues to kind of clue you in. The one is it's not judgmental, it's not
That's great.
critical, it's not going to criticize anything. It's
Right.
very, to me, it's very matter of fact. Um, and sometimes it can have, I guess, voice is the word, but I call it flavor. It sometimes has a different flavor.
Right. I like
Um, be, because I have not just one voice. I have 12, my soul family. I have 12 different voices. Boy, I wouldn't want to say that in public.
that.
They'd be putting the jacket on. This guy here has 12 different voices, But anyway,
The old
um,
you, if you would have met the old you before this and mentioned the 12 voices, what would you have said back to?
I would have said, you need help.
Yeah, go.
Right?
So
Um,
funny.
It is funny, but over time, and you got to remember this, my original experience was in 83. So I've had a lot of time to integrate this and to come to terms with it. And after 11 years of self-isolation, I had a second experience, which kind of taught me that I really needed to accept the entire experience and to start really living by what I'd learned in my near-death experience. And so that started me, I called it my quiet ministry. That's where I started because I had hidden it for so many years. It was very
Right.
hard for me to be public about the experience. So to me, it was a quiet ministry. And I would just, everything that we do in life, once we've had a profound experience like this, then we begin to weigh our experiences by what we had learned in that experience, right? Because we all are a combination of our life experiences. Well, plug in a profound spiritual experience in the middle of your life experiences, and now you have something additional to weigh your choices against.
What
And
brought
so
on
that,
what brought on the second experience? Did you do anything to coax it, or did it
yes.
just come out? Oh, you did. Good.
Well, yeah, I started a meditation. When I was a
Right.
boy living out in Arizona, most of my friends were Native American. I lived in a pretty dysfunctional family. So my friends' grandmothers kind of saw the dysfunction in my life, and they had taught me how to go to my sacred space.
Right.
And and that's a whole nother story. That's a whole nother podcast, James. But anyway,
That's great.
but I was back with a very spiritual group. We were back in Arizona, actually in Sedona, and the leader of the group asked us to go do a short meditation before we would gather together. Well, I grew up in Liberty Valley, so I knew the Bell Rock really well, and I knew there was this neat little place that I could sit where I could look across the vasta of the across the valley. And so I climbed up there, found my place, and I started to go into my sacred space. And that light, it spoke to me and it said, return to the light. And I found myself going back into the void, meeting my soul family again. Only this time, I'm not so much in gaga awe. I'm really, really, now I'm like looking at everything. I'm, hyper aware. And Whereas the first time I was just in awe of everything. But this time, because it's familiar now, I'm a little more, I'm paying a little
Right.
more attention. And 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 I got to see the 11 years I just lived in the life review, and I got to see how much I changed. And it
That's
was,
great.
again, it was a shocker for me because I didn't really think I'd changed.
Right.
But I had, just by adopting acceptance, tolerance, and truth, starting to pay more attention to my spiritual nature, my divine nature, I had changed a lot. And I got to see that in that second life review. And so that's what really kind of kicked me in the butt to start moving and
Right.
living by what I'd learned. And so, but the neat thing was, this group that I was with at the time had a number of experiencers, and very well-known experiencers, very, popular in the experiencer communities. And this is, this is in 94. So it's still, not quite as well known as
No.
today, but still, there was beginning to be a community of people that have had experiences, that have had, and we're trying to understand and try to come together. So
Beautiful.
I ended up finding two mentors. And I'll tell you, if you've had any kind of spiritual experience, a mentor is the best thing you can go for. Try to find one, whether it's online, whether it's in person. If you can find one in person, go have a cup of coffee and sit down and talk. And an experiencer, the one thing that I've learned is when a new experiencer approaches me, I let him just share. I don't interrupt. And the worst thing you can do is interpret their experience.
Right.
I consider, when someone tries to tell me what my experience was, they're trying to hijack my experience. And I won't allow it. I'm really strong. I have strong opinions about that one. But yeah, because it's our journey, and, someone can't tell you what your experience is, because
So
they
you're
haven't
saying
been there.
when someone steps in and starts to analyze it or interpret it symbolically, you're like, okay, easy, back off.
Yeah, back off.
Right. They can keep that within
Back.
themselves if they want, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, well, exactly. And what their experience, because when we're sharing these experiences, people are filtering it in themselves,
right,
you
right.
know. And, and I'm sure that you get comments all the time from your podcasts about, oh, I heard this, I heard that.
Yes.
I learned right early on, when I did start to share my experience, I people would come up to me and they would say, when you talked, I heard you say this. And I'm pretty sure I didn't say it, but they heard it. And that's
Right.
wonderful. It's beautiful that they're getting, a message that's meaningful for them. Um, and and when I talk to a lot of experiencers now, it's, I've been very involved with experiencer community for quite a while. And and it's a common thing that, people, in fact, there was a researcher, uh, Ken Ring, who coined the phrase, the benign virus. That when we listen to these experiences, when you allow an experiencer to share, you catch a benign virus, a seed of spirituality, you
Right.
know. And
That's
and
beautiful.
so yeah, it is. It's an amazing thing. So yeah, we should share it. Problem is there's a lot of communities out there that don't want to hear it, you
Right.
know.
Right.
But hey,
There's
I've
plenty
come
out
to the
there. Yeah.
yeah,
I do.
but there's different people, again, tolerance, their life
Yes.
choices, right? It's their life
Yes.
choices. So we can just be who we are. And that's, so my quiet ministry really taught me more mindfulness, to be, present, mindful. And this is back in the 90s, before we had, those types of terms that were so
Right.
public as they are now. And then to be authentic, to be true to who I am, you know,
Right.
and to try to follow my guidance. And that's the thing is we started talking about, how do we know it's our guidance and not our chattering mind? what I used that really helped me in the beginning was I used inspiration. I realized that any time that I experienced inspiration, that was coming from a higher source.
Ah,
That was
that's great.
that was coming from my
Right.
divine nature, right?
You didn't just write it off as that's the same with me. I would write off things as just a coincidence or just an inspiration, a nice moment, but now you see it in a whole new level.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And what I did was I started to develop I started using my creativity. And what I was doing at the time was I used silversmithing. I went in and I started because you can be really creative with silversmithing. And so I would allow my inspiration to and that's where I learned that I learned which voice was which
Ah,
because I was listening, I was using my inspiration. And the neat thing that I found that when we receive something inspiring, there's usually a physical feeling that comes with it. Now, I've got friends that are healers and they feel it in their hands. Some people
right.
feel it in the top of their head. Me, it feels like my heart is opening. It feels like
Beautiful.
this like a rosebud opening in my heart. And so anytime I would feel inspiration, I would feel that. And I've learned later that that's my doorway. That's my doorway to connect with my divine nature is to, pay attention when you feel that inspiration. Where does it manifest in your body? Okay, now you want to go touch your divine nature. Focus on that part of your body. Focus on that feeling because our remembrance of that feeling takes us back to that. And now you're on the threshold. You're on the threshold of your own divine nature. And use that as a doorway to connect with your own self.
That's beautiful. It's reminded me of a few things. Joseph Campbell, who I'm sure you're familiar with,
Mm,
said, and it's when I first heard it, I was an atheist and I liked it, but it sounded hedonistic a little bit that it could, but he said, follow your bliss, go into,
yes. Hmm.
and what you're saying, go into that doorway, go when the heart opens,
Yeah.
don't hold back, go, it's almost like a little alarm clock in the dream to open, and don't miss it because it
Yeah.
closes probably quick, and
Yeah.
Rumi
And
also said, follow whatever moves you and that you love, go into that.
yeah, I love Rumi. And my wife's
Oh,
Joseph Campbell is her hero, my wife's hero. So
both of
um
those.
yeah, yeah, big time. Um but yeah, so I mean there's a lot of there's a lot of ways to we all have it doesn't matter what your creativity is. Um I met one experiencer, his creativity, he was an accountant and numbers was his thing, you know. Um and he could be so creative with numbers. And so it was like that was his doorway. And
I love
God
that.
bless. I you
Yeah.
know, I,
So
I
enter the doorway that is best for you.
yeah, yeah,
That's and I like what you say that you became almost a scientist with it, that you listen to the intuitive voice and you try it out. If it didn't work, then you start to discern what
yep,
works, what doesn't. And when that, I think you called it a flavor, when that flavor came up that,
yeah,
you go,
yeah.
there it is. And the heart
There it
opens.
is. Yep,
And that's
yep,
beautiful.
yep.
So we have to just practice it and work on it, hone it like any,
Yeah, I think that's the best. It's like a muscle in a lot of
yeah,
ways. It's like, we go to a gym to exercise, to keep toned, to be fit, right? Well, the same thing with our spiritual nature. We need to exercise and
yes.
to keep it toned and to keep it fit. So
My teacher and I always do the old joke from New York. How do you get to Carnegie Hall? Practice. You have to practice.
yes, you
People
do.
don't want to
Yes,
do
you
that, but
do.
you have to do it. And if you don't, you'll suffer until get
It
squeezed into it.
Well, and I mean, you look at most spiritual leaders and stuff. They developed a discipline before it became a
Yes.
state of being. It was a discipline, and eventually it evolves into a state of being. Like myself, I meditate every morning. I have a more I call it my morning routine.
Right.
And 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 if I don't do it, I don't feel right for the whole day.
Right.
Um, so it puts me, it's like I'm putting my foot forward in the most positive energy I possibly can, um, by attuning myself, because I have a lot of health issues, that have resulted, later on. I had stage 4 lung and bone cancer that
Oh,
my spine collapsed, and because the cancer ate away so much of my spine.
yeah.
So I live with pain every day. I've since had, I've since um, gotten past the cancer, and they've rebuilt my spine, but now I have titanium in my spine, which is even more painful.
Right.
So I live with it every day, and I refuse to take pain medication unless it gets really, 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 really bad, because I found that the pain medication kind of mutes my ability to hear spirit. And
Right.
so I don't like that feeling. I want to stay connected as much as I can all the time. So I try to live a more natural, homeopathic type of life, and that really kind of, you try to be as natural as you can, and try to be as wholesome as you can.
Any tips you have for healing yourself? Like when that pain comes up, do you go back into the heart? Are you silent? What do you do?
Yeah, I go into the pain actually.
Ah, that's another Rumi
Yeah.
line.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
pain is where
I've learned that, you go into it, and then once you're into it, and you're fully involved with the pain, you can encapsulate it and kind of set it aside. And so it's still there. I know it's there, but I can live my life. I can live my life.
it's like you took the juice out of it, sort of. You took the
Yeah,
to confront
and
it rather than
right.
medicating it or covering it up with alcohol or medicine or
Yeah, yeah, or yeah,
self
prescribing,
medicating.
yeah,
Right.
self-medicating something. But so what I do is I set it aside. It's there. Actually, it's a good thing that it's there, because I'm a guy. I push the envelope. I do dumb stuff, and so it's a good thing that it's sitting there, because it's a reminder when I do something stupid, that you know, and then I go through the process again. But that's part of my morning routine, because I live with pain 24/7. I don't sleep well. And so I can only be laying prone so many hours. And then it's like, okay, I have to get up. And then that's probably the worst moment for my pain. And so that's why I have to set it aside so that I can get up and live my life. I refuse to lay in bed. Um,
Right.
and so it, and then when you go into, and I use gratitude a lot,
Beautiful.
because I, I found that gratitude, when you're truly grateful, you're grateful for everything. The
Yes.
good, the bad, the ugly. You're grateful for all of it, because you have to be. And when you reach that level of gratitude, you've set your ego aside, and you're that much closer to your divine nature. So
Yes.
I use gratitude to start my daily reflections, and that brings me, right to stillness. It brings me to stillness just by being purely grateful for everything.
Beautiful.
Um,
These are
it's
great,
it's
great
yeah.
tools. We call it here the astonishment toolbox, and these are great. So
Yeah,
gratitude.
I call them tools for living.
Yeah, yeah. I love your advice is so practical too. It's right. It's immediate. It's not, you don't need to go buy a yoga mat or a trip to Tibet. You could do it right now, right in your bed, right in your room, wherever you are.
Yeah,
Very simple.
yeah. Well, there's, what's the old adage? There's so many paths up the mountain, right? And
Yes.
and what works for one person may not necessarily work for another, but um, but you can try on different things, and when you find something that works, go for it. Develop the
Did you ever
discipline
find
around it.
anything that you would say to a seeker, don't do that? Anything, any traps,
I,
anything that
I, I yeah, don't let the experience become your whole life.
that's good. Don't get obsessed.
Yeah, yeah, because I've met a number of experiencers that, where a lot of times, like I was told I have a purpose, right? Well,
Right.
gosh, that could have blown up my ego so big, right? That could be, I have a purpose, I have this message for the world,
Listen to
it's a
me.
trap. It's a trap. It's a
Right.
trap. And so, yeah, that's the one thing that I would advise.
Don't
Don't
take
let
it too
the,
seriously. Yeah. Take it
yeah,
serious, but not too serious. Always have a smile and that heart open.
right. But yeah, approach it with kindness, like I have this thing that I communication when I was really deciding that I wanted to be of service. I said, use me gently, you know. I don't want to go, I've had enough trauma in my life. Use
Right.
me gently, you
Yeah.
know, and
I
and
like the
and
word
and
gentle.
yeah, yeah. Because I mean, we don't always have to be, rah 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 into everything.
Right.
We can go about our lives gently and calmly, and that's what stillness does for us. It brings us back
Yes.
to that calm, still center that exists within us, and we're able to bring that out into our day to day and our interactions. And so I try to live by being, because I used to be the guy that was in your face, eyeball to eyeball. Um, you know right at your nose, very high
Yeah.
volume kind of individual. And
Right.
and and it just
What would you say to that guy today if you ran into him?
you need a reality check,
But you got to be careful. You don't want to hug him because he might
I
punch you in the head.
yeah, right. He would, yeah. Don't,
Got to
oh,
approach him just
I
right.
was terrible with hug. I was because I started implanting myself into these spiritual communities, and they were huggers, and I didn't
Also,
know how to
even
act.
after the experience, you still, yeah,
I
you
had
weren't,
a hard
you
time
weren't,
because
yeah,
I wasn't used to it. I wasn't
right.
used to it. It's something
It's-
now because I even help now. I help facilitate a retreat here in Virginia Beach for
oh,
experiencers,
beautiful.
and boy, it's like a hug fest, and
It's amazing when our paradigm pops like that and everything just, I always say it's like a sock when your sock's inside out and you put your hand in and pull it that way. It's like everything goes inside out, and now you're hugging everybody. At the retreat, can you give us a rundown of what you find works for the most people that come, like the most effective medicines, whatever they are, whether it's gratitude or medicine itself?
yeah, what we do is we give everybody. We limit the size of our retreat to 20 to 24 people. Only because when
That's
it gets
good.
bigger than that, it's more like a conference than it is
Right.
and so we don't have so much. We have we have sharings. We don't have people lecturing. We don't do that. And so we have we have rules of etiquette, kind of like we have some etiquette rules, that, and we use simple tools like a talking stick. Um, so a person has the talking stick, they have the floor, and if they want to open it up for questions, they can open it up. If they don't, we respect their space. They have the talking stick, and so but because we have 20 people, we have to sometimes restrict time. So when someone has the floor, basically we give them a certain amount of time. And
Right.
so I have a little iPad that has a little countdown timer so that they can clearly see how much time they have.
That's good.
And that way, and then everybody's respectful, because some of us have, um, you know, have a lot to say, you know,
Yes.
but if you think about it ahead of time, you can condense and get everything you want to be said, and it doesn't have to take up hours and hours, because
Yes.
many times we get so caught up in I like to say the circumstances, of that lead into the meaning that you're trying to convey. And so you can cut out a lot of those circumstances and
Yes.
just get to the core of what it is that you need to say. And so we try to do that as much as we can. But also it's very social because people come together. We share meals, we go out
Yeah.
It's done right on we have a hotel right on the boardwalk,
Oh,
and
that's great.
everybody is in a suite overlooking the ocean. So you have that
Uh,
ocean, um,
yeah,
you have that ocean breeze and that ocean, the waves lapping that you can hear, from your suite every morning, and you can walk the beach in the morning. We put a lot of personal time in so that people can go and reflect after we have a sharing. Or you can find community. You can, so the retreat's kind of an interesting little, cosm that we try to create there, a safe place where people can share their experience.
that's
Or,
great.
and it doesn't have to be near-death experiences. It's called NDER and R, but it's actually for anybody who's had any kind of spiritually transformative experience.
Yeah. And how long do you do? Like 3 days or a week or?
Yeah, we start on a Thursday evening, and we just do a little gathering, a little gathering that night, go
Social.
out for dinner. And so it's very social. And then Friday, Saturday, and half a day Sunday.
That's great. And do you find people write you afterwards and there was a moving of the bar that or the chains that they feel closer
Very much,
to their
very
heart?
much.
That's great.
It's very, because a lot of times what it does is it fills your cup, you know,
Yes, yes.
especially if you're whether you're a seeker or you're a giver, on your spiritual path, you need to fill your cup. And
Yeah.
so being with like-minded individuals, being with a mentor, um, being in a sharing group or something like that, it allows you to like breathe. It's like coming
Yeah.
home, and you can breathe because you don't have to worry about being judged. You don't have to worry about any of that. All that's left. And the other thing we do is we leave our titles at the door.
Oh, it's great.
You
Yeah.
know, I don't care if you're a multimillionaire or
Right.
if you live on the street. In
Yeah.
the room, in the sharing, we're all equal. It doesn't matter.
Beautiful.
We leave the titles at the door. We all have something to say. We all have something to share.
That
So
sounds great. We'll put a link to it if you want in the description of the
yeah,
podcast.
we can. It's really simple. NDER and R, and is
That's
spelled
great.
out .com, and there's only 4 spots left for this year. It's in October, but
So you do one a year or two a year?
one a year,
One a
one a
year.
year.
It's great.
Yeah.
And do you have, David, any for our toolkit, any of your, I mean, you were in the ocean, but any favorite metaphors that point to this, to someone that is trying to uncover this true nature that's so amazing and astonishing? The ocean
Yeah,
and the
well, I
wave.
never, I listen, I listen with my mind, but I navigate by my heart,
Love that. Yeah, that's
because I
beautiful.
really believe that we need our mind to help us with the rational decisions that we need to make and things like that, to reason things out. But also the bigger directional decisions are made in our heart, and so, yeah, listen with your mind, but navigate by your heart.
By your heart. I always say take a swan dive out of the monkey mind into the heart. But
Yeah,
if
yeah.
you have to experience it. It's so beautiful.
And everyone can. Everyone
Yes,
can.
and they
Our
will
divine nature.
eventually.
Yeah, our divine nature is patiently waiting to hear from us. You
Can
know.
we do before you go? I know you have to go a little tiny bit of speculation. If you want, I'll go first, and then you can go. What is going on here? Like what? Just to start the clock on your iPad. Give me 1 minute. So there's pure imagination, or
Uh-huh.
God, whatever you want to call that. This beautiful, ungraspable. You can't see. It's just this pure, and it somehow makes form and gets lost in the form of David and James and everybody. And then the true nature, though, is that kernel inside of us, deep, deep, like the diamond way inside. And you have to uncover it, and you suffer until you find that core. And sometimes it takes dying to who you were and facing our fears. And then you find it, and then we can't shut up about it and we share it. and we all come back home. So eventually everyone maybe will get back to this one light. All right, that was me. You go.
Okay. Well, this is something that Spirit's been sharing with me and some of my clients because I do a lot of energetic healing. And what Spirit has been doing to help people is to send a message first into their heart and allowing that message to be absorbed throughout your entire body. And so that all the trillions of cells in your body can hear the message. And the message is just simply love. Send that message into your heart so that it can be absorbed into all the trillions of cells within your body. That message of love. And the cells that can't hear it, we allow them to be burned away and the universe will recycle them and transmute them back into love. But the
Right.
new cells coming in, because we're constantly evolving. Every 7 years, every cell in our body is
Love that.
replaced. But the new cells coming in will have that message.
Wait, what you're saying is so perfect, and it reminds me of how science will. Max Planck said, "One funeral at a time, science will advance to what we're talking about." As the
Yeah.
old way goes away, and you're saying the same thing, only right down to the cellular level. They one cellular funeral at a time. They will
Yeah.
go and be replaced by
Yeah.
these more cells in the heart.
Yeah. And it's interesting that 7 year cycle that the body goes through, integration for experiencers is almost the same amount of
Right.
time.
And the
The
7 year
7 year
itch,
cycle.
7 year itch.
Yep. 7 year itch. Yep.
To the divine,
Yeah.
divine marriage.
Yeah.
That's great. David, this was wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time. And maybe we'll talk again next year when you have a retreat. Sounds wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah. All right.
Thank you.